Hello everyone, my name is History Nuggets, and today we are continuing our Napoleonic War series with a two-part series about the French invasion of Russia. After the Treaty of Tilsit in 1807, the conclusion of the War of the Fourth Coalition would see Napoleon and Alexander I of Russia friends, allowing Napoleon full reign in Eastern Europe, as well as Russian incorporation into the continental system. However, after the Russian economy began to collapse, Alexander I would break away from the blockade, with trade beginning with Napoleon's worst enemy. Napoleon's establishment of the Duchy of Warsaw also angered Russia, which saw this as a potential French invasion point. And after Napoleon destroyed Austria, Napoleon would ally with them, making Russia even more worried. In 1811, Marshal Davout prepared to invade Russia, deploying troops from all across the French Empire, and Napoleon began traveling as well, arriving in Turin. Alexander I would then order an ultimatum to Napoleon in April 1812, demanding the evacuation of French troops from Prussia as well as the Duchy of Warsaw. Napoleon would see this and would choose war, beginning his massive march towards Moscow on the 24th of June 1812, splitting into 5 columns. The left wing, under Macdonald, crossed into Tilsit, moving to Courland, and occupied Dunenburg, returning to Riga shortly after. The other force under Murat would occupy the Niemen, with Napoleon traveling through here, with cavalry entering Polotsk and Pretira. The French also entered the Vaya. Another force under Napoleon's brother, Jerome Bonaparte, crossed into Grodno, moving towards the other French armies, fighting at the Battle of Mir where he would lose, eventually seeing Jerome leave. The other 2 flanks would occupy their respective regions as well. Napoleon, being met with little resistance, would move deep into the Russian territory, with him beginning to see tough terrain in Lithuania, leading to slower transportation with his cannons. The French would spearhead into Vilna, pushing the infantry hard, which was difficult in the extremely hot summer going on, leading to many deaths. The French would also reach Vilna on the 28th of June, with 5,000 horses dead thanks to heat. Typhus would also spread out throughout the French, and with thunderstorms striking, the expedition in Lithuania would be extremely difficult. Guerrilla warfare from the Lithuanians would also occur, making supply transportation extremely difficult. The Russians, seeing the oncoming French, would avoid battle, and would instead continue to fall back. The French would continue their expedition, reaching Nemesis on July 1st, where they would see the retreating Russians. By the first 2 weeks, over 100,000 people had died due to sickness in the Grand Armée. Davout would begin his march into Minsk, where he would fight in the Battle of Mogilev, seeing a French victory. Napoleon, seeing all of these losses, would see even more scorched earth tactics, with them arriving in Polotsk, seeing nothing for them to live off of. Despite this, the French continued with their march on Smolensk, beginning on July 16th. Tsar Alexander I would retreat his armies to Moscow, with refusals from the Russians to fight. The French would continue, facing even more heat and scorched earth. Napoleon would fight in the Battle of Vitebsk, seeing a victory, but also seeing how quickly the Russians were retreating. Napoleon would finally arrive in Smolensk on the 4th of April, seeing the First Battle of Krasnau, a massive French city. The Battle of Smolensk would then occur, where the French would see Smolensk completely burn, as well as the defeated Russians once again retreating. The continued French would meet with the full Russian army at the Battle of Borodino, the largest battle of the campaign, seeing the Grand Armée fight extremely hard, with the Russians facing many losses during this invasion. The Russians would be defeated, but not without resisting extremely hard, while also seeing them retreat once more. Napoleon, seeing this victory, saw his last expedition into Moscow begin. Napoleon would move on the 12th of September. The Russian generals of their army began extensively planning, eventually leading to them deciding to evacuate Moscow and abandon the city, not without burning the city down. Napoleon would arrive on September 14th, 1812, seeing no one there. The city would be reduced to ashes, the spiritual capture of Russia gone. Napoleon had finally arrived at Moscow, sending a peace offer to Alexander, stating how bad the Russian position was. The Russians, and Tsar Alexander I, would refuse to respond, and Napoleon would begin his wait in Moscow. This is History Nuggets. Thank you for watching Part 1.